The purpose of this video is to talk about some of the differences and similarities between these two tools that you see in front of you, being the miter saw and the track saw. While these tools do a lot of the same tasks, they are very different in their capabilities. Now let's first start with a miter saw. So this is a very common tool that you're going to see in a lot of shops, and it does one thing really, really well, and that is cross-cut material quickly, accurately, and it really just makes that process of cross-cutting over and over again very, very easy and repeatable. With a miter saw, typically you are going to get the ability to have a little bit bigger cut capacity on those crosscuts. The other thing that it's really beneficial for is if you need to do compound angles. So if you're doing a lot of trim, this is a tool that's kind of a necessity in your shop. Now, most times miter saws are packed with all kinds of different features that make the task a lot easier. In this case, we have a shadow line feature to make referencing the cut line very quick and very easy. We have hold downs, and we have the ability to get this tied up towards a wall, whether you're on a job site or you're in your shop. And then you can also get them in both a cordless and a corded configuration that is best suited for your needs. So now let's go over and talk about the track saw. With a miter saw, you are always bringing the material to the tool. Now, while you can do that, hypothetically speaking, if you were to set up an MFT like you see here, you can also do that. However, one of the biggest benefits to a track saw is that I'm able to take the tool to the material. So because of that, it gives me a lot more capabilities in a lot of cases. And the best example of that is while you can cross-cut effectively up to various different sizes at a miter saw, you can do the same thing with a track saw. However, what you can also do is rip materials. So you're almost getting the benefits of both a miter saw as well as a table saw in a very small compact tool. Where a track saw really shines is if you're somebody that's doing a lot of work with thinner material. While you do have the capability to cut a lot thicker material, as you'll see, there's various different track saws that come with different capabilities in terms of cut depth. Here we have a 55, a 60, and a 75, meaning 55 millimeters depth, 60 millimeters depth, 75 millimeters depth of cut. So we have a little bit of leeway on, depending on what material we're cutting. However, where they really, really shine is thinner material. We'll say 1.5 inches or less, and primarily sheet good material. This is almost a necessity if you're processing a lot of sheet goods. Now, with that being said, theoretically, the track saw has more capabilities than a miter saw. However, that does not mean that it is the best tool for the job all the time. And let me give you some examples when it comes to limitations. Here, I've already mentioned, we don't have the ability to do rip cuts, but we can cross-cut up to, in this scenario, roughly 12 inches. And if we were to flip a board over, we could theoretically get 24 inches. However, when we're using a track saw, there really is no limitation on the cross-cut capabilities depending on what length track you are using. So if I needed to make multiple cross-cut on thicker material, this may be more time consuming than setting up a track saw and using that. So now let's flip that and talk about some limitations on the track saw versus the miter saw, and where the miter saw makes more sense. And the one thing that comes to mind is if you're doing a lot of trim or you're doing compound angles. You can do that if you have a setup that will allow you to do it, because all of these track saws do bevel. However, this is a much faster option, and you're going to be able to manage those smaller pieces of material quicker and more efficiently using a miter saw. One other example might be thicker material. Let's say we're cutting a 4x4. Again, you can do that with one of these tools. It's not going to be as simple as a task as doing it on a miter saw. And I would also like to add that while we are looking at a smaller, compact, cordless miter saw here, there are obviously larger versions that give you even more cut depth and more capacity. However, making a cut like that would be far easier on a machine like this. But now let's flip that again when we're talking about thicker material. Let's say that I have a 2-inch thick tabletop and I need to trim the edge off of it. Well, there's a couple of ways that you can do that. One is to take that large tabletop and run it through a table saw, or that's where the track saw would really, really shine, that the miter saw is just not the right tool for. So hopefully this video helped shed some light on the differences between a miter saw and a track saw. Again, a lot of the same capabilities, however, they are very different tools, and hopefully this information will make it easier for you to determine which one is right for your shop, or if both are right for your shop. Thanks.